sales will always involve an aspect of sifting and sorting. Even pure definition or saying everything right, they might just never take action on what it is you are offering. So there are some people who will always hate you, no matter how nice you are, no matter how mean you are. That's just a certain percentage with enough interaction. This is assuming that you are confident that the person you are speaking to is qualified to try and get what it is you're offering. Just because someone says, I don't want to spend a penny more than $900, doesn't mean they don't have access to $1,000. Someone might say, I don't want to spend a penny more than $900, and they don't even have access to $500. The differentiation is in understanding that you are assuming that your prospect is worthy of buying your thing. Once you realize that, then this is more relevant. Welcome, everyone, to the Close More Sales podcast. On today's episode, we will delve into a sophisticated yet crucial technique in sales, and that is intentional curiosity, being intentional with how we are curious. This concept is deeply misunderstood, and I came to the realization as to how misunderstood on a recent call I was doing for a group of real estate investors. This got brought up, and I realized I needed to make an episode about this. So what we will talk about isn't merely about peppering our prospects with questions, okay? And it goes beyond the tired trope that so many of us are familiar with, and I've been guilty of saying in the past as well. It goes beyond the tired trope of saying, well, just be curious at all times and you'll get the deal. This is more nuanced than that. And it involves strategically knowing when to probe deeper, to get your prospects talking, and when to step back from your certainty that what you offer is right for your prospect. When to actually pull back and hesitate rather than simply trying to move the deal along. This allows us to guide our prospects through their objections, leading them to the point where they are essentially selling themselves on our solutions. Curiosity, when misapplied, can actually hinder progress rather than accelerate it. I will say that again. Curiosity in a sales conversation, when misapplied, can actually hinder our progress through the sale rather than accelerate it. Now, throughout this episode, we will uncover how we can use inquiry in our prospects' minds with our questions, with our probing, without making them more resistant to our ideas and resistant to what we're trying to offer, okay? So the flip side here is that well-timed curiosity, when you're actually very strategic as to when you are curious in the conversation versus just being curious at all times, can transform potential objections into powerful moments of agreement and kind of like the most masterful persuasion possible. So mastering this, the art of being curious, of using curiosity intentionally, is not about deploying a barrage of deep questions, personal questions, impact questions, assumptive questions. It's none of that. If we do this right, we can weave and dance past their hesitations so that the prospects feel like they have genuine interest after you've given them the chance to verbalize what they were hesitant about in the first place. It sounds very broad, okay? But I will get specific as we go through this because it is really, really powerful. If you facilitate the discussion appropriately, you empower your prospects to articulate their needs, and they overcome the objections that they were harboring in their head, which in turn provides you with everything you need to know to tailor your approach effectively so that this is their idea when you go for the close. And most salespeople, they falter in applying curiosity effectively. They either wield it too sparingly, they're too certain and not showing interest in their prospects, and then they fail to delve into their prospects' real concerns, or too aggressively, which is what I will show here, how in the example we go over today and a few other examples, can accidentally lead to defensive reactions from your prospects, okay? This is a really key point that this group of real estate investors had no idea the mistake they were making. So Today, we're going to learn how to find that perfect balance, how to make sure you are intentional with your curiosity so that it's used at the right time instead of the wrong time. Curiosity at the wrong time can actually be hurting the sale. It's a crazy thing that I wasn't even sure of necessarily exactly how to point out when curiosity at the wrong time was hurting the sale. And then this got brought up at a question, and I realized, wait a second, there is a right way and a wrong way to do this. So if you're aiming to elevate your sales conversations, to be more engaging, to actually get the results that you're looking for, do me a favor. Follow, subscribe, do all of that jazz for this channel. And by the end of this episode, you'll have learned the key, essentially, to differentiate yourself from competitors and from other salespeople and figure out what really matters in what separates great salespeople from the merely good, okay? So you'll learn to employ curiosity not just as a tool for gathering information, which it is, absolutely, but as a powerful, I really mean this, a just powerful objection-crushing weapon to guide your prospects' decisions in a way that feels inherently their own. And most importantly, it's decisions that they believe in wholeheartedly, okay? So why listen to this show? What's the point of this show anyway? Why should I listen to the Close More Sales podcast? Why should I pay attention to this? The purpose of this show is to empower sales professionals and entrepreneurs to push themselves to grow, achieve unimaginable success without burning out, and ultimately transform their lives. I'm Ian Ross, and I am obsessed with all things sales. And I work with teams across the world at this point to make more money by asking better questions. The most proven path to achieving financial freedom is maximizing your earning potential, and nothing is better for that opportunity than a sales role. It is the lowest barrier to entry with the highest possible ceiling for your personal income. That is the goal of this podcast, to teach you how to make more money so you can use that active income to achieve financial freedom. That's the goal of this show. Everything we cover on this podcast is geared towards one thing: helping you close more sales so you can live the life that you want. I've said this before, I say it in every opening, but I really do believe that anyone can become a killer salesperson if they have the right techniques, mindset, and consistency, okay? That I really believe that. The question will be is if your personality type is going to be willing to push through the rejection to be able to make the type of money you can in sales. But if you feel like you are that person, or you are willing to do what makes you feel uncomfortable to make that type of money so you can be in pursuit of financial freedom, a sales role is an opportunity that you don't want to miss out on. So if you're not yet a subscriber or a follower of the show on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, please leave us a review or a comment. Tell us what you get out of today's episode and just the show in general. We are listening to you, and we would love to hear your feedback, okay? And if you'd like a sheet breaking down all the things to say in a follow-up call so that you never have to say the words, well, I'm just following up or I'm just checking in ever again, text follow up, 2 words, follow up to the number 33777. We'll see if we can help you out along that process and give you that sheet completely for free, okay? So let's get into the topic today. Let's talk about the role of curiosity in sales. To define curiosity, it's not simply asking questions, okay? And it's not just understanding your prospect's needs. Curiosity is a mindset for how we navigate around the potential obstacles that our prospects will throw at us in real time. However, there's a double-edged sword of curiosity, because what you are curious about will determine your prospect's reaction to it. Meaning, curiosity, the right or wrong way, can either open up a dialogue and further move the sale along, or it can cause your prospect to retreat and defend their hesitations more staunchly. There's a timing and when to be curious that matters. I do like the idea of being generally curious on a sales call. That is important. But when you're being tactical about asking questions and seeking more clarity from your prospects, doing it at the right time versus the wrong time matters. So let me give you the example that made me want to have this episode in the first place so this can hit home, because I'm sure you're like, what are you talking about? That sounds very good, but like, what's the example you're talking about? So before I even get into that, you have to understand this concept, which is that the most effective sales process involves one where our prospects sell us. We are not doing the selling, okay? We initiate a process where the prospect wants to sell us so that they want to, on why they want this, why they want whatever it is we offer. And the way to do that process is by giving them their own objections so that they can overcome them. And we embody non-neediness as we do this. We pull away and give them a chance to elaborate on why they want what we have to offer. That's a really key distinction that not enough people actually do. They might have a memorized line like, why do you want this? But they miss the important aspect of really getting someone to feel like it was their idea. So this idea of being intentional with your curiosity came up on a recent training call. I was training someone who works for a company, and what they do is they acquire houses for cash at a discount. And he got a very common objection in this world. He got from the homeowner, the objection was, oh, well, my sister is a real estate agent, so we might just go with her. And then in his question, he brought up that he got very curious about the agent, curious about the sister. He started asking questions, trying to understand, how good she was, how she could do this. And it was on this call I really wanted to give this context, because if he was curious immediately after the agent is brought up, which is in the aspect of sales, for those of you not in acquiring houses for cash, this is simply a competitor objection, right? This is someone saying, instead of going with an investor for cash, I could go with my sister who is a real estate agent. So it's a type of competitor objection. Whenever someone brings up an alternative solution, now, it doesn't have to be a competitor for whatever it is you're selling. It could be simply keeping things the same, right? I'll keep this in mind because a lot of people don't understand this difference in sales. They think that I'm often trying to compete against my competitors. It makes sense if you think about that in the sports analogy. It should make sense like that in business. However, I'm not that focused on competitors as much as I am focused on overcoming indecision and inaction. Because if I truly overcome the idea of being indecisive or not taking action on your challenge, and you being the prospect in this instance, then by the very nature of overcoming that, you will want to take action now, and now means you'll want to take action with me because I'm the one on the call with you. I hope that makes sense. So I'm not overly focused on competitors as much as I am focused on the cost of doing nothing or taking your time or not making a decision. Fundamentally, it's a broad statement, but that's how I think about this quite often. Because if I can get you to go, man, I can't do nothing, the chances of you feeling that urgency of taking action now are so much higher than if I'm focusing on beating a competitor. If I'm focusing on beating a competitor, you might already have the need as the prospect, but you don't have the urgency to solve it right now. And so you delay it, and then I become a commodity and looking at price and features and all these things rather than how I actually want to present myself, which is a one of one who is unique, who can help you solve your problem, right? And that is always more impactful in a conversation if you can feel like a unique service or product rather than simply one of many, then you're competing on a bunch of metrics. That varies depending on the industry and what you're selling, yada, yada. But if you can structure things that way, it's important. I gave before on a previous episode of this podcast the idea of trying to sell a solid gold Yachtmaster. Rolex has competitors in the luxury space, but there's nothing quite like a Rolex. They've done a very good job in branding and marketing themselves that way. It's a branding aspect. If you as the salesperson, through conversation, can make it seem like your company or you, whatever it is you're selling, is one of one, you're not dealing with competitors, you're dealing with indecision. And that is way easier to overcome because when you overcome inaction and doing nothing, they take action now, which is with you, rather than overcoming the competitor objection and then they take action with you later. Okay, that was that differentiation. So the goal for me is always to try and think about getting you to take action now. In the example of this call with the real estate investor, he asked a question that is similar to a competitor-like objection. Now, because he was curious about the sister, who is a real estate agent, immediately what happens is the prospect will defend why they just verbalized that objection. If my prospect goes, I might go with my sister who's a real estate agent, and then I start asking questions about the real estate agent, they will defend the very reason they bring that up. However, in contrast to that approach, if we first pull away and tell them, you should definitely go with your sister then. I'm guessing she's sold quite a few homes just like yours in this area in the last 6 months. If I tell them that, they will correct us because the chances are that's not true, right? That's a fairly confident assertion I can make. Once they correct us on that extreme statement, go with her then because she sold a bunch of homes just like yours in this area in the last 6 months, then I will get curious. Because if I get curious after he corrects me and pushes back on that, and they go, oh, no, she hasn't sold any houses yet. She just got her license. Or no, she's only sold different houses or only a couple, not in the area, not like mine, right? There were a bunch of key features that would get that corrected. Once they start doing that, I can get curious then because then the prospect is selling me. And I want to understand that I don't want to get curious about a statement that it's an objection before telling my prospect or giving them the option or giving them the space, whatever, it depends where it is in the flow, to correct me in my statement as to why they should just adhere to their objection. This is a really, really powerful concept, okay? I can give some more context here. I'll give more examples. But just let me repeat this point again because I touched on it kind of loosely. I want to make sure this is hitting home. If they're going, yeah, I'm considering a competitor, instead of going, well, tell me about the competitor right away, using curiosity right away, that's a version of saying, why do you want to do that? Why did you bring that up? And why is slightly accusatory because to answer a why-oriented question, you have to defend your reasoning. So if I am curious immediately when I hear the objection, they are defending the objection, which is them verbalizing the wrong direction away from the sale rather than towards it. So instead, I want to tell them to go towards the competitor or go towards something through a statement that they're likely to want to correct because it's too extreme or has too many benefits or says it's too perfect or something. And then once they've corrected that, then I get curious. So here's the example again, and we can talk about this in different industries. And it doesn't even have to be the competitor objection. It's just an easy one to understand. If someone goes, yeah, I'm considering the competitor, and I should go, yeah, you should definitely go with the competitor. Like, I'm sure they're amazing. You've already talked with them, and they've said they'll give you everything you want and then some. And they go, well, no, I haven't talked with them yet. In fact, I haven't been able to even get a hold of them. I've called a number, and they haven't answered. Right? They've corrected me in some way, shape, or form. Or they could go, no, it's good. It's so expensive right now, and I can't really afford it. Right? By the nature of me telling you, go do that, go with them. I'm sure they've got X, and they got Y, and they got Z, and that's amazing. That's probably, I don't even know why we're talking. They will start to switch and defend the reason they're talking to me because I pulled away or pushed them away almost, right? It's a weird thing of like pushing them away or pulling away myself. In this aspect, I'm not really pulling away as much as I'm pushing them away. Go ahead, go do that. Oh, if you're worried about price, like we're too expensive. By the very nature of me giving the objection to them, they will then defend the alternate of that, right? Which is moving towards the sale. And then I get curious. I only want to get curious when the prospect is going to verbalize things that move me towards the sale. I don't want the prospect saying stuff away from the sale. So if someone says, yeah, I don't want to, here's another example. If I know what I'm selling is $1,000 and they say, I don't want to spend a penny more than $900, just a broad example, I'd go, instead of going, why don't you want to spend more $100? I would want to have some aspect of like, yeah, I'm sure you've found something already that works inside your budget. There's no reason for us to even be talking if our stuff is more expensive anyway, because you probably found exactly what you're looking for. And then I will get corrected about that. And then I can get curious about that $100 difference. I don't want to get curious immediately until I've given them the chance to verbalize a defense in favor of having the conversation with me. This can be relevant in any possible objection in any industry, no matter what's going on. There's a version of this for whatever your circumstances are. If you get curious too soon, they will defend the reason they brought up the objection, which is pulling away from the direction of the sale. It's going the opposite direction because they're verbalizing their hesitation. Instead, I want to give them the hesitation. They give me something back, and then I get curious, and they will continue in that trajectory. That's the idea. My curiosity in this instance is correctly oriented around how the sister is not the right option for him as the real estate agent. But if I am curious immediately, right after he tells me about that sister, the prospect will defend the choice to bring her up in the first place. And even defending the choice to bring her up is the wrong direction. Okay? This is really, really, really powerful stuff. We can talk about many different examples, and I'm happy to go over it for anyone who's curious. But it really applies to anything that could get brought up. I don't want to be trying to fight you and push you towards the sale. So in fact, I will do the opposite, and when you start coming towards the sale, that's when I get curious. Sometimes you can even be conveying non-neediness, but then you get curious as soon as they bring up their hesitation, and then we have a problem because now they're defending. They are speaking out loud their hesitations, and that will reinforce the initial objection instead of being strategic about when to apply your curiosity. It's really, really important to understand disengaging with your own curiosity if how they defend it moves away from the sale. Again, there's always an aspect of qualifying and disqualifying. So depending on where you are in the conversation, it might be worthy of learning more about why they're considering something else, because that should disqualify you from even having the conversation with them in the first place. So I want to make sure that point is hit home too. So let me talk about this very briefly.
I'm filming this video for the man himself, Mr. Ian Ross. The guy crushes. The guy's the best person in sales I've ever seen. I've invested elsewhere and I haven't got the same results. I've gone from being a seller, making 5K a month, to being a hybrid role, making 11K a month, to now be 4 months down the line from 5K to on a closing opportunity, inbound, full calendar, with the best opportunity, the best offer in my space. OTE is around 20K a month from month 2. So I've gone from 5K to 20K. If that's not a return on your investment, I don't know what is, man. If you're a salesperson and you don't invest in sales training, you're gonna get left behind because your job is to be better at sales. And sales training directly makes you more money.
My name is Lance McCann. I've recently switched sessions with Ian Ross. Those conversations with Ian has made me $50,000 in the past 2 deals that I've had. I was able to go back and renegotiate the original purchase price on one deal, and I saved $40,000, and I got another $10,000 off my other deal. Let's call Ian and give him a chance. You won't regret it.
If you like what you just heard and you'd like to have similar types of results, similar success, text CLOSE, C-L-O-S-E, to 33777, and we'll see if you qualify to join Advanced Sales Mastery. We are taking people from good to great.
The aspect of not being willing to let your prospect disqualify themselves through saying, I'm going to go with a competitor, or I'm going to do nothing, or I don't want to spend this much money, whatever that is only really relevant once you've determined this is worthy of being a lead in the first place. Now, depending on what it is you're selling and where this is coming up in the process, you might, if you're just like a lead manager who's just someone raised their hand for something online and it's a very specific sale, and then once you talk to them the first time, there's like 50 different questions you got to ask them before you can determine if they're genuinely a real lead. Doing this right away is probably wrong because you actually have to do an aspect of sifting and sorting through people anyway. Sales will always involve an aspect of sifting and sorting. Even people who say everything right, by pure definition, are saying everything right, they might just be looky-loos, I believe is the term, right? They're just shopping around. They're never going to take action. There's a percentage of people, if you have enough conversations, who will never take action on what it is you're offering. So there are some people who will always hate you, no matter how nice you are, no matter how mean you are. That's just a certain percentage with enough interactions. So moving past the sifting and sorting through that, this is assuming that you are confident that the person you are speaking to is qualified to try and get what it is you're offering. Just because someone says, I don't want to spend a penny more than $900, doesn't mean they don't have access to $1,000. Someone might say, I don't want to spend a penny more than $900, and they don't even have access to $500. So again, the differentiation is in understanding that you are assuming that your prospect is worthy of buying your thing. Once you realize that, then this is more relevant. Now, you can still do this earlier, but just be aware that you're going deeper and moving someone towards the sale when realistically you might be wasting your time because they should not be a lead who's serious. Does that make sense? So it's like if someone says, I'm going to go with my sister who's a real estate agent, and it happens early on in the process, and the reason they want to go with their sister is because their house is in perfect condition and can be listed on the market right now. And the sister just needs to take some photos and post it because they've already done enough work that they don't even need a good real estate agent. They've done all the work and they just want to give the commission to the sister as a charity thing. Well, in that instance, that is not a lead for an investor buying distressed assets, right? Because by the very nature of their reasoning, it's different. So, but if someone is, they're a hoarder, the house is in disrepair, they don't have money, they got somewhere they got to go and they got to go there quickly, and they hate real estate agents in general, so they're just willing to go with their sister to make it easier, that is a lead. Okay, so be aware that the context of the situation of your prospect matters for this stuff even more than what they tell you, because sometimes they will tell you everything that seems right, but their circumstances dictate they are or are not a lead. Again, it really depends on the industry. I'm just making sure that the listeners of this podcast, the watchers of this YouTube channel, are aware that I can give you all the information, but then since this is a one-way street of talking this way, if I were to actually look at your process or listen to a call and figure out who the lead was, and you're like, I did everything Ian said, I'd be like, yeah, but this person clearly wasn't really a lead. So just be aware of that. So let's dive deeper into some specific industry scenarios where I can paint a picture of this, because not everyone listening is acquiring houses at a discount. So you can think about this. So let's say it's a luxury car sale. Okay. The example here is I'm selling a luxury car. I'm not even going to say what brand because I don't even want to tether people to the idea of the brand. It doesn't matter. It's a high-end vehicle. If in the car lot, the person there brings up, they're considering a competitor brand, which is very high status as well. It would be a mistake to be curious initially, right when they say that about my prospect's consideration, because they will defend the reason they just brought up wanting this model. So again, I guess I'll use brands. Let's say I'm doing a Lamborghini and someone brings up Ferrari, or Ferrari, someone brings up Lamborghini, right? Those are common competitors. If I'm immediately curious, they are going to start verbalizing the reasons they want to move forward with it. However, if I compliment their identity as being someone who's got great tastes in cars, like if you definitely just want, let's say I'm selling a Ferrari, and I say, yeah, if you definitely just want to be like, yeah, I got a Lambo, and that's kind of all that matters, you should definitely just go buy a Lambo. That's all that matters to you. And then they will go, well, no, it's not all that matters. I also want it to be blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, tell me more about that. Now I can get curious. Now I can go, what's more important to you, this or that? But I first want to give them a reassurance and some push towards the competitor before getting curious. Because if I do it immediately, they'll start telling me why they love Lamborghinis and why they've always wanted a Lambo. And the whole reason they made money was to get a Lambo, right? Any of that. So they want to pull up to the club in the Lambo, whatever. Doesn't matter. But if someone brings up the objection, I don't want to be curious immediately. I want to push them towards that objection, double down with an extreme statement around that objection. And then once they come back towards me, that's when I get curious. Let's talk about a different scenario. Let's say someone has insurance, not whole life insurance or anything like that. Let's just say it's a business insurance coverage for someone who's got a small business. And there's no penalty for switching necessarily, but the prospect is hesitant to switch from their long-term insurance provider. Okay, they're just saying expressing hesitation. Instead of immediately getting curious, because they'll start defending all the reasons they don't want to switch and their fears around that. I don't want to immediately probe into the pitfalls because that could reinforce the loyalty of their current provider by simply having them talk about their hesitation to make the switch. A more effective approach with curiosity would acknowledge that it makes sense. You've had a good experience with them so far. I guess they've done. I'm going to guess they've done everything you could ever want, and there's no reason to ever question wanting to switch. They've met all your needs. The price is the lowest you've seen. You've never had anything that you've been dissatisfied with. Right? The reason I'm doing that, I'd probably figure out a slightly better way to do that. In fact, here, let me give an example how I might actually say that so you can maybe apply it. Let me think for a second. Okay. I'd probably say it makes sense that you're not feeling like you're wanting to switch right now because that provider has been amazing for you, I'm guessing. In fact, they've probably met all of your needs. You have absolutely no reason to complain, and you're satisfied with the price, service, and everything about them. I would say something like that. Because if they go, yeah, I am, then I can go, I'm a little confused. I guess I'm wondering, why are we having this conversation right now? Why even entertain this conversation if you're so happy with your current provider? Right? I could do that. Or they will correct me and go, well, no, I'm always looking for a cheaper price. And one time they gave me, they fought me on one claim and I found it really annoying. Right? They'll give me something and that's when I get curious. Okay? That's the idea here. I don't want to be curious immediately. I want to give them a push towards the objection and then get curious. This is the power of this. So if someone's like, and sometimes you can get preemptive about this. For those of you watching, I do this with my own stuff. I will say all the time, sales training, it's expensive. And if your goal is to just find the cheapest sales training that you can do right away, we're not going to be a good fit for you. I will say that early on and often because I don't want to hear, oh, that's too much money, I don't want to afford it. Now, obviously, there's always an aspect of sometimes people can't afford a thing. Sometimes that's true. But also, if you believed that there was a map to buried treasure and that map was accurate and you could just go to that buried treasure and pick up $1 million, you would find a way to pay whatever you needed to get that. You would pay $10,000 even if you didn't have $10,000 because of knowing you could go to that destination and make $1 million. You'd be like, I'm going to take out credit cards. I'll do whatever I got to do to get the $10,000 to be able to get the map to get $1 million. There's an aspect of that in terms of a return on investment. And so I can be confident that assuming that money is not actually a pure, I just flat out can't get the money, that if people think the value is there, the money would not necessarily be an issue. So I don't want money to become an issue, so I will tell them that this is too expensive for them. And I will tell them earlier rather than waiting till the end to bring this up. For those of you who are crossing your fingers, hoping that your prospects don't say the normal objections you always hear, you're running a hugely risky process of waiting until the end of the sale when emotions are high to be able to overcome that objection. Instead, you can tell them the objection themselves. Hey, I'm hesitant to bring this up, but I have a feeling you're probably going to want to go with the competitor. You won't even want to use us. I will tell them that. And then once they start defending the reason we're having this conversation, that is when I get curious. The curiosity should be so our prospect moves us towards the sale, not so they move us away from it. This is a really, really powerful idea. I hope all of you are thinking about how to apply everything I just talked about to what it is you sell, the objections you hear, and the prospects you have. Think about how to apply this to what you are doing. What is the main pushback you're getting? Is it price? Is it competitor? Is it process? What is it around what it is you are selling that gets you resistance? If you're new to a role, ask people at the company. If you're trying to sell your own services, search online for that services, what the most common thing is. And if you haven't had the sales conversation yet, there's a million objections and a million conversations that I've already had where people know what your objection is, even if you're not sure. Figure out what that is and figure out how you can tell them in advance that this won't work for them for whatever reason, and then get curious once they defend why it will. This is really, really powerful. Now, if you if your vibe as a sales professional is to be kind of like low status and closed off and almost sort of like a groveling, sniveling, like, I can see if I can help you, it's hard to figure out if this could work because your general demeanor doesn't really work for this type of idea. I am always trying to convey non-neediness, that I don't need any particular sale, but I'm happy to have the conversation to see if we can help you. And if you can convey that for what you're doing, this approach of getting your prospect to sell you is hugely powerful. Push them towards their objection, and then once they move towards the sale, that is when you get curious. I'm repeating this point 10 different ways because I know it's really impactful and so many people aren't doing it appropriately. As we wrap up today's episode, let's reinforce what we've covered about intentional curiosity in sales, okay? So, understanding when to probe deeper and when to pull back and sometimes push them away from you is crucial. This turns the routine of tell me more about that and just asking questions, the basic inquiries that we all have to ask in sales, into being strategic in a way that leads our prospects through their own objections to see the value in what it is you are providing, to feel that like it's a real solution for themselves. This approach to curiosity is not about just let me ask more questions. It's not even let me ask questions like at the right time. It is kind of, but it's really understanding the general vibe, which is that I want my prospects to sell me on why they want this. And then to facilitate that process, that vibe, where the prospect feels like they're making the discoveries themselves, they're talking about the value themselves, they're increasing their own verbalized commitment to wanting this solution themselves so that they eventually choose to want what it is you offer. This principle here transforms the potential setbacks of I want to go with the competitor, I don't have the money, I want to wait, whatever, into powerful moments of agreement and clarity. So take a moment, reflect on how you can use curiosity in your own sales conversations. When you get curious, are you advancing the sale, or could a different approach help you guide your prospects more effectively? Consider this and really think about it before we wrap up here. If you adjust your strategy on how you do this one thing, could this actually lead to better outcomes and more successful closes? Really think about this. I encourage everyone who watches and listens to this show, share with us in the comments or in a review how you use curiosity and how you have used it in the past strategically in your sales efforts. Where has it worked? Where hasn't it? How can these changes of what I just talked about, how can this work for you? And then once you do it, once you take action on what I'm training, tell us about the results you're going to get, because it's powerful. Your feedback is valuable to us. It helps us learn what our audience likes, and it helps us adjust to make sure we're continuing to give you guys what you want. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast to stay updated on everything we're doing. I think on YouTube they say like hit the bell icon, something like that. All right. What we're trying to do is transform your sales approach, give you really actionable, tactical, deep, advanced concepts for free on this podcast to deepen your understanding of how to get people to want to take action with you. So if this is valuable to you, please let us know and engage with the content. Let other people know as well. And if you want to join the top 1% of sales professionals crushing it in their space, text CLOSE, CLOSE, to 33777. We'll see if we can qualify you for Advanced Sales Mastery. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, the right question at the right time with the appropriate process of your prospect selling you can not only change the course of a conversation, it can change the entire outcome of your career as a sales professional. So keep refining your approach, keep learning, keep trying to get better, and be intentional. I'm Ian Ross. This has been the Close More Sales Podcast.